This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. It's so great to have you joining me here in these online lessons. This is lesson 50 in this series that is all about jazz guitar. Can you believe it? Lesson 50. As you know, I work as a jazz artist, as a recording jazz artist, and I'm so delighted to bring this course to you, where we're really working in sort of a line upon line fashion, just building in these things. So if you start in lesson 1 and progress, you're going to learn how to play jazz guitar. And it's important while you're learning to play jazz guitar with these lessons that you're listening to a lot of jazz guitar. You can even just play along, but you got to be listening to the music because there's a language there. We learn that language by listening. And with these lessons, I hope to supplement and help you learn to play jazz guitar to the best of your ability, to as great of ability as you'd like to play. In this lesson right now, we're going to look at comping the chords in the swing style. So that takes a little bit of an explanation. Since lesson 33, we've been working on a lot of different types of voicings. I set out a formula in lesson 33. We've worked on learning some of the voicing types since then, especially for the different types of chords that we might play: major 7, major 6, half diminished, fully diminished, and so on. Minor 7, minor major 7, dominant 7, altered dominant 7. We've learned those in root position, where we've got the root there, some nice different voicings. Of recent, we've been working on rootless voicings, which we sometimes use because we're playing over a bass line, usually played by the bass players. So we can comp with these rootless voicings and get more colors. Those are the things we've worked on so far. We've also looked at comping in the bossa nova style. So playing nice Latin rhythms in that bossa nova style. And early on in the course, we looked at how we would do things in sort of the Freddie Green style. So now we're looking at things from more of a pianistic standpoint. What would the piano player do in more contemporary jazz, especially after getting out of stride? They start playing things a little bit differently. We end up doing this as guitarists as well. Not always at the same time as the pianist, but we might take on that comping role where we're playing those chords. And the whole point of it is first to sort of lay out the harmony, help mark the form, help a soloist interact with the soloist, but we also create some syncopation, some tension against the forward momentum that's happening with just playing on the beat, which happens when that bass happens with the drums, a ding, 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 ding. So we need some syncopation and things that break that up. So when comping rhythmically, the rhythms are a little more unpredictable and improvisatory. The voicings we choose can be improvisatory. So there's 3 components to this comping the chords that we're going to work on in this more contemporary pianistic style. One is that we're going to work on the rhythm, and that's what we're going to work on in this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how you can sort of play melodically with these chords and get some variation melodically, which happens in the way that we interact with the soloist or the melody or whatever we're sort of interacting with when we're doing this more accompanimental role. And then the third thing is that we can play in some passing chords and so on that create some tension and release. So we're going to look at that in that third lesson. Now, there's other types of voicings than what I have taught so far in the series. And we're going to learn about those down the road. Right now, where we're at, the voicings that I've taught so far are excellent, can get you very far. You can play so much jazz with the voicings that we've worked on so far. And now we're just going to start getting in some of these comping techniques mixed in with those voicings. If you haven't seen any of those lessons and don't know those voicings, it's okay. You can participate in this lesson with whatever voicings you know how to play, or you can just sort of copy the ones that I'm playing. So in this lesson, we're looking at the rhythms. Let's go ahead and get started here with that. I'm going to be going through rhythmically. I'm going to start us with some principles to playing in this style and doing this sort of thing in the swing style. And then we'll finish off with 4 different patterns to kind of get us going, and then how we kind of improvise around that sort of thing. So there's going to be a lot to this lesson. But each of these parts is helpful. I can't go into great detail as far as the principles go. I've got a new book that'll come out soon. It's an updated version of my theory and technique book, which goes into great detail if you want more detail. But here I'm more going to give an overview of the principles, and then we'll work on it some with some great examples that should get you going and get you playing in this style well. So the principles of the rhythm. We can have notes that fall on a beat, or notes that fall on an offbeat, and that sounds pretty like okay, duh, right? But we have notes that can fall on any of the 4 beats when we're in 4/4, and they can fall on any of the 4 offbeats. When they're on the offbeat, they're shoved back into the beat, further than directly in between the 2 beats. Usually we're going to push them back at least 2/3 of the way, maybe even a little further. I find it most useful to keep track of on the beat. And a lot of times at faster tempos, on beats 1 and 3, and then 2 and 4 are just in between, halfway. But I especially can feel where beat 1 and 3 is, and those feel like the big strong beats, and then I've got 2 and 4 that feel slightly different. When notes are on the offbeat, and when you're reading these rhythms, if you're playing in a big band or something and you're reading this rhythmic notation, this could be helpful, but it also helps us internalize it. When they come in, I usually sort of feel it more than count it, and it's coming in on the 3rd. I usually think of beats 1 and 3 as if it's on the and of 1, that it's ricocheting off 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Da, da. So I feel 1, and then I ricochet off of it. If it's on beat the and of 3, I do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, But if it's on the and of 2, I'm going to feel it like it's almost on beat 3. That's how I internalize it. 1, 2. I don't have to think, where's the end of 2? I just have to think, I'm almost on 3. 1, 2, come in a little bit early. 1, 2, 1, 2, Or if it's on the end of 4, same thing, almost on 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, So that's kind of how that works for me. We can have 1 figure per bar, and we can have multiple figures per bar. And so that's that though, on the beat or off the beat, and we kind of have to get used to feeling that. So you can actually practice, and in the book that I have, I go through this, just practicing with 1 figure on a beat, practice landing on each of the 4 beats. So if I had a 1, 2, 3, 4, I can practice doing on beats 1, practice beats 2, 3, and 4, and then especially practice these off beats, 1 and 4, 1 and 3, 4, 1 and, or 1, 2, 1, 2, So you can go through and practice those with a metronome or whatever. It can be helpful to practice just with 1 figure, getting used to where those different ones are, and then we start adding in more figures. Here's another principle that's important. Long notes in this swing style are dotted quarter notes and longer, and they're just held for their full value. If they're followed by a rest, that's the point where they're cut off, but they're held for their full value. Long notes. Short notes are considered a quarter note or shorter, and the ones that we see the most often are going to be quarter notes and eighth notes. Now with those, phrasing. Rests indicate when to cut off. So anytime something is followed by a rest, it's telling us when to cut off. With jazz, with the articulation of these notes, we care as much about where a note starts and where a note ends. It's very important in jazz. We care about that, where the notes start and where the notes end. These same kind of things that we're talking about here with comping rhythms apply to playing melodically as well. So if you're reading in a jazz big band or something and you're playing melodically, these same kind of things matter there. But the rest indicate when to cut off. So for example, a dotted half note here, and then the rest, I'm going to cut off on beat 4, so it would hold 1, 2, 3, and come off on beat 4. How I make that happen with the guitar is with a finger rest. Finger cut off, so to speak. So what I do is I let my hand relax but not come off the strings. Relax the pressure, and it cuts it off, but I don't pull my hands off. If I pull my hand off, I'm going to get some weird ringing over. So that's how I do a finger cut off there. Then, with this, eighth notes and quarter notes, there's a little bit more to it. So eighth notes that are followed by another note, whether it be another eighth note or so on. those are considered legato and connected. So we're going to play them for the whole value and let them be connected to whatever the next note is that they're playing. We're not, a horn player wouldn't put air in between. We're going to try not to put space in between. So if it was like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, I would let them ring over. We don't usually see that sort of thing, but I wouldn't have it have space in between. So legato and connected. Eighth notes that are followed by more notes are legato, but eighth notes and quarter notes that are followed by a rest are played big, fat staccato. So we're usually going to give them like 2/3 of the beat, and they're going to be cut off. So I'm going to use my finger cut off. Do that, which I have there. Do that, and the reverb kind of keeps it ringing, but do that. So you're going to cut it off. It's going to get sort of this fat 2/3 of the beat as much as it can, and that's for quarter notes and eighth notes. When they're followed by a rest, they get that same treatment. Quarter notes that are followed by another note can be actually treated that way, that big fat staccato, or they can be legato and connected, and those are usually indicated. Over here on this one, for example, on the board, the syncopated quarter note that's on the end of 1, it has the little teepee indicating that, oh, we're going to have the fat staccato version. But if it had a flat line, for example, we would play it connected. And so in that case, da, 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 or it could be da, 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 in this case, da, da is what's written. So we're going to have that little space, do that 2/3 of the beat, cut it off with our fingers. So that's the general principles. Now sometimes you'll get into 16th notes and so on. 16th notes are going to create sort of a double time feel. So everything that we said in relation to quarter notes would then apply to the eighth notes, and the 16th notes would be treated like the eighth notes. And that's how that goes when we start getting 16th notes in for the most part. Triplets, we're kind of tripletizing everything naturally. So generally triplets aren't going to be written, but we could have like 3 triplets back to back. Do-do-da, do-do-da, that kind of thing. So we would see that, and those would be legato and connected if you're going to have tripletized eighth notes back to back. Quarter notes, tripletized quarter notes could be staccato or legato if we had 3 of those back to back, for example. Okay, so those are the general principles. I know that's a lot of information. Hopefully it's helpful or gets you interested in figuring out more of these things in greater depth. But as we're learning to comp the chords, so much of it is intuitive. So as we're doing this, what I've gotten in my theory technique book has a lot of practice with each one of these things, helps us get those principles just into our fingertips, so that when we go to improvise our comping, we've got all this material to draw from. So when we're improvising comping the chords, it's sort of like when we're improvising melodic lines. The more that we have to draw from that's already under our fingers, the more free we are to just be interactive in that moment and play that music. So the theory and technique book goes through and gives you practice with a lot of these types of things in greater detail. But I wanted to do an overview before we look at 4 examples. So what really helps as we're learning to comp is just to work through some different rhythmic examples, get them under our fingers, and then we can go and improvise, and hopefully we've kind of got some things happening, and then we can start being improvisatory based on what we've got under our fingers. So I've got 4 examples here, and as we work through them, I'm just going to do 2-5-1s in the key of B flat major. You could use rootless voicings if you want to. You can use whatever voicings, but I'm just going to do those 2-5-1s, and we'll even just work with B flat a little bit as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing as we go through these examples. This first one, I've got all of them drawn out here in 2-measure examples. You could do 1-measure examples that you work over and over, but we're going to work a couple 2 measures. Sometimes we'll work just pieces of it. So if we work just this first measure, super familiar, just on that B flat chord, B flat major 7, it's the do dot, do dot. We've used that previously as we've worked on a lot of chords, so that's probably really familiar. The second measure though, end of 1 and then directly on beat 3 for that half note, it's going to get that full value of the half note. So you're going to have 1 and 3 full, 1 and 3 full, 1 and 3 full, 1 and 3 4. If you put it together, you'd have do dot dot do just get comfortable with that. Now, as I'm doing this with swing rhythms and the right hand, we use almost exclusively down strums. And in something like any of these, we'd be doing all down strums. When we're strumming, that's the way that we can most closely mimic the sound of the piano, playing all those keys. But we can also use our fingers, which actually mimics it even more because it's one note per, or one finger per one note. So just like we press those notes down on the keys of the piano or on a keyboard, we can just pluck the notes of the strings. When I do that, I've just got my fingers pulling in and doing like a one-handed clap kind of thing. My thumb pushes down. I end up going back and forth between comping with my hands like that, doing that sort of pinch, and using a pick. So just get started with whatever feels comfortable. If you're comfortable doing that plucking, go ahead and do it. If you're not and you want to do the strumming, go ahead and do it. Whatever you feel most comfortable with, start there because we're working on some rhythms. And once the rhythms get comfortable, then you could practice doing whichever technique feels less comfortable as far as strumming versus plucking. Okay, so once we've got that happening, then it's nice to start putting it maybe in a 2-5-1. So if we do a measure of C minor and then a measure of the F, and then we can go to 2 measures of the B flat, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll just keep repeating it. You can join in if you need to, or if you haven't yet. Now, once you've worked it in one key, like we've been working letter A there, in one key, that 2-5-1 in the key of B flat major, it's really great to then go and work it through a chord progression in a tune you really like, or work it with one chord type around the circle of force, as we've done so much in this lesson series, or work the 2-5-1 progressions through multiple keys like we have in previous lessons, whether that be proceeding down by a step, where we take that 1 chord and turn it into the new 2 chord, or where we go around the circle of force, so we turn the 5 chord into the new 2 chords. So the 2-5-1, go back, 2-5-1, go back, 2-5-1. Those are great ways to work through it, but you want to work through that pattern in different chord progressions, sort of incorporate it that way. I'm not going to do that here, but I wanted to point that out, that will help you internalize it more. Let's go ahead and take a look at letter B. So we've got another option here that's kind of fun. Do dot dot is how it starts out. You'll see that that quarter note, which is followed by another note, has the indication of it being short, the big fat staccato. It could be long, and we would have do dot dot there, or do do dot, do do dot. So it could be either way, but we're going to do the do dot dot. Then we're on the and of 4 connecting over. Let's just treat that there. We'll give ourselves some space before we worry about that other measure. So we'll just have do dot dot down 3 4, do dot dot down 2 3 4. So I'm just letting that ring as long as I want to, and I'm feeling this rhythm is almost on 1. As we continue into that second measure, I've actually got the dotted quarter note followed by the 8th note. So do dot dot down dot, do dot dot down dot, do dot dot down dot, do dot dot down dot. And if we were to add that final figure on the and of 3, which is a dotted quarter note there, we'd have a 1 2 ready and do dot dot down dot down, do dot dot down dot down. Once you've got it down with the 1 chord, we could do it then going around 2-5-1s. So we'll do 2-5-1. When we're going to a new chord and we're kind of across the bar syncopating like that, then we can bring that new chord in right there as the anticipation. So C minor would be here on this figure, and then the F, and then we come to B flat. So we'd have 1, 2, ready, and. So on and so forth. So another great one there to play around with. Letter C then. With this one, we're not going to start on beat 1, we're going to start on the and a 1. Like before, got the little sort of carrot top there telling us, we're going to play that as a fat staccato, not legato and connected to the next thing. We got that 8th note combined to the quarter note. So dot down, we'll just look at that measure there on B flat. You'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's all there is to that. Then the second measure has this do dot. So 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 1 and 1. Throwing it back to back kind of makes it hard to ricochet off of this, but finding this, it's just ricocheting off beat 3. So we've got 1 and right on beat 1, 1 and 3 and 1 and 1 and. Now, if we went ahead and put these two measures together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Once we've got that, we can do the 2, 5, 1s. So we'd have 1, 2, ready, and. Just like that. And of course these B and C like A, working through different chord progressions is really, really great. Let's look at letter D then. Give us a little bit more variation here to play with. So we're coming in on the end of 1, but it's a dotted quarter note. So we're going to sit there and then do dot dot. Now this one isn't indicated. You could choose either way. Syncopated quarter notes more often are played like this than they are played legato. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Do dot dot. Same thing we did up here. So I'm going to put that little over it. We're going to play that as a fat staccato, accented staccato. And then we'll worry about that next measure in a moment. But we'd have da do dot dot. That's how that works. Da do dot dot. 3, 4 on da do dot dot. 4 on da do dot dot. Then over in this next measure, we ricochet off the end of 1, and then land right on beat 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2. And we kind of bring this off right on 3 if we can. If we put the two together, you'd have 1, 2, ready, and. If we go ahead and stick this into a 2-5-1, it a lot of times is a great idea to bring on the end of 4 that new chord in. It can actually be done either way, but we oftentimes anticipate, more often than not. So just going back and forth between that C minor 7 and that F, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. So then we can put that in the 2-5-1. So you got 1, 2, ready, and... So you can work that through different chord progressions, and you could create some of your own. You can create different variations. You could take and make something long where we had it short. So clear up here, we could make this a long note instead of a short note. You can make this one short. So dot down, dot down. You could play with different variations if you wanted to, but the idea is that you create one, or you work with one, or you transcribe one, and then you work it through, get it comfortable under their fingers, and you can get it comfortable with the different chords that you're playing. I was just kind of sticking to that basic 2-5-1 that we worked on several lessons ago, but you could do this same sort of thing with these rootless voicings. So that first one, do dot dot down. You get the rhythms happening, you get comfortable with the chords, and it is so great. Now, ideally what happens is we start getting some of these things happening under our fingers. We've worked through some different options, different rhythmic options, different voicings, and then we just sort of improvise with it. We can kind of just be improvisatory and be free. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that a little bit over the backing track. We've used this backing track before. But what it's going to do is just have a bass line that's going to walk 2-5-1s in the major keys. It's going to start with D minor, go to G, and then C. Then it becomes C minor, F, B flat, B flat, E flat, A flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, continuing on G flat, B, E, and then E, A, D, D, G, C. Then it goes up by the half step. Because we just ran through 6 of the keys, so it's going to do C sharp minor, F sharp minor, B, B, E, A, D, G, G, C, F, F, B flat, E flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and then D flat, G flat, and B. So it's going to go through that fashion in those 2-5-1s. 2 chord gets 1 bar, 5 chord gets 1 bar, and 1 chord gets 2 bars. We've done this sort of thing a lot. So I'm going to go through and play with that and just demonstrate sort of improvising rhythmically free. I'm going to use more of the rootless voicings as we've been working on recently, but it's okay to use any of the voicings that we've been working on recently, or any voicings you know for those chords, and just work trying to be improvisatory with the rhythms that we play. So this backing track will give us hits on the hi-hat, 6 of them, 2-beat rest, and then the bass line will start and we can comp over the top. It's going to be super fun. Let's go ahead and do it. Okay, awesome. At least I hope so. Now, that backing track is available for you to play along with as much as you want to on the channel. Down in the description below, there's a link. You can click on that. It'll open a video. You can play along with that backing track without me playing over the top. All of the backing tracks that are created for this lesson series are available. There's the Jazz Jam Along backing track playlist. The ones that have been created for the last several lessons where we've been comping with these rootless voicings are really great for practicing this sort of thing, or just going around one chord type around the circle of fourths, or playing through the 2-5-1. So you could practice rhythms doing that over those bass lines. All of those are available on that Jazz Jam Along backing track playlist. So pretty cool. Now, super fun. This is a big thing. Most of the playing that I do when I'm comping the chords is very intuitive, but in trying to improve, I've worked on voicings and I've worked on different rhythms, and then that just sort of gives me more repertoire, so to speak, more material to pull from as I'm improvising that comping. So hopefully this is helpful to you. In the next lesson, we're going to look at adding or working with sort of the melodic aspect of our voicings in this sort of thing, because having a great melody is part of having great comping. And then in the lesson after that, we'll look at how we can easily throw in some little passing chords, which also gets us going in this sort of comping style, something that happens all the time. Of course, there are more voicings than what we've covered, and those will come later in the course. After we do these 3 lessons, we're going to get back to working on some improvisation with those melodic lines again. So lots of great things to come. These lessons come out on Mondays and Wednesdays. On Technique Tuesdays, I've got lessons helping with the dexterity and getting that left hand working better, and the right and left hand coordination. So you may want to check those out. Theory Thursdays, there's lots of theory lessons that help us understand the fretboard better, help us understand the music that we play better, all supplemental to the jazz course as well. And then on Saturdays, we are jamming in the pop, rock, and blues style, learning to improvise with those pentatonic scales. Super fun. Those are the lessons coming out each week right now, and of course there's hundreds and hundreds of lessons already on the channel. We've got method books, so lots of great ways to get help with playing the guitar. Keep having fun, take care, and we'll see you again. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. For more in-depth lessons and to progress through a free guitar course, check out my Guitar 101 series on YouTube and my guitar method books, which all come with access to hours of in-depth video lessons. You can find more information about me and my products at kristenbromley.com. Take care.